Let's talk about taxes. What taxes specifically do you want to come down?
Well, look, I think very first thing, we are in a cost of living squeeze. And I think the reduction, which is already planned, 1p off the income tax rate, the basic rate, that should happen now. If I become Prime Minister, we'll have an emergency budget. We'll introduce that immediately. I also want to freeze, if you like, the proposed increase in corporation tax. If we're going to rebuild this economy, if we're going to beat the rest of the world at it, as it were, if we're going to create the jobs that we need, the high-tech jobs, we cannot send a signal to business that you're not welcome here. And so that is a tax which will not go up. And I'll pay for all of this by making sure we cut the cost of the state.
OK, that's interesting, because it does feel like at the minute in these leadership contests, everyone is talking about tax cuts, corporation tax cut, national insurance, and it's expensive. So you are being open that you would cut spending in order to do that? Yes.
I mean, look, our government spending, just to put this in, is £1.2 trillion a year, right? And it's gone up.
Yeah, but that pays for an awful lot of things.
Of course it does. Of course it does. But it's gone up because of coronavirus. In fact, I mean, last year public spending was, I think, 52%, over 50% of GDP. And what the danger is that it never quite comes down again, and it never gets down.
Where would you cut then?
Well, Gordon Brown, even Gordon Brown, I should say, used to say that public spending should be no more than about 40% of the economy.
So where would you cut? Because this is where we get
of course. Well, let me just sort of give you some examples. There are nowadays many more efficient ways of doing things. So to take my own area of transport, there are still 60,000 pieces of paper a week being sent to the DVLA agency that look after people's driving licences and the like. That takes a lot of administration, a lot of bureaucracy. You can lower costs by using technology.
You can't
lower... I'm just giving you one simple example.
I understand, but it just feels like, just by saying efficiency savings, this is what everyone talks about.
No.
Billions and billions here. You're going to have to make some difficult and potentially controversial choices in spending if you want to pay for it.
But here's the thing, again, Department for Transport, we have 5,500 people working there now. In 2016, it would have been half of that size. Now, we've had to deal with, the upshot costs of Brexit and dealing with all of that. We've had to deal with coronavirus, dealing with all of that, But there must come a point as a government, and this will be the case across all government departments, where you sort of say, hold on a minute, what's going on? In 2016, people weren't saying government isn't big enough, and so it's now twice the size.
Give us a meaty proposal where you'd cut spending.
Yeah, let's start with the size of the civil service and government. I would certainly look to reduce the cost of doing government. I think that's really important.
So you'd sack civil servants?
Well, you partly do this just through attrition, of course. Sacking sounds very, very, very harsh, but you simply stop employing people in posts. You allow the thing to come down. Another great example, again from my area, there's obviously things that I am very invested in. I am at the moment in the process of taking on the RMT, the union who still operate under rules from the 50s and 60s. One case, a rule from 1919, which is that you can't necessarily ask people to drive on a Sunday. And in doing so, we overman some of our public services in some ways which aren't even safe. So in the case of maintenance, for example, rather than using technology, trains that could do a much better job with 70,000 images a minute on the railways or checking the railways. Instead, we have people go along and walk along the railways.
I'm interested.
And that's dangerous.
And it's overmanning public services. So do you think that is across the board in lots of different public services?
So I do think across certainly government departments, certainly the agencies that I'm most familiar with,